Hi students, it's Colleen again from 43North. Today I'm with Glenna from one of our companies from way back in the beginning, the early days of 43North. Glenna's here with us to talk about her transition through high school and college, and then what ultimately led her to become an entrepreneur and a founder of her own startup company. So Glenna, just start by telling us about yourself, currently the company that you're running.
The company that I founded 7 years ago now, I'm founder and CEO of it. It was a company that we founded to bring the technology and tools that we've been developing as part of my academic lab, because I'm a Prophet UB as well. We wanted to bring some of those tools out to the marketplace, which is always an interesting question because we're using certain tools in our academic research, and the academic world is very, very different from the business world. And the big question that you always have to ask is there a customer for your product? It doesn't matter what level you're at. And for me, I was at the point in my research where I had been working on this research project, totally research project, and I needed a device to do a certain thing, a certain experiment I was trying to do. So we built it because that's what you usually do in a research lab. And then I went and I presented that at a meeting back in 2013 or so. And at the end of the presentation that I gave, everybody goes, "Oh, where can I get that device?" Which wasn't quite the reaction I was expecting. I was expecting to talk about the data, to talk about the interpretation of what we'd done. No, it was, "Oh, that's a really cool device. I would like one of those." So we go, okay, I guess there's a market, which is, it's a big hurdle when you're starting a company. Maybe we should go make this device. So we did. So it's not the traditional, I had a burning goal to bring this product to market. But the market came and said, "I really like that device that you're using." The company then, of course, has grown as we've expanded our product line, but we're still very focused on that one little area that my work is on, which is cellular electrophysiology. It's how the electrical behavior in cells affect the body's health. So it's a spin-off company. You'll find quite a few of those in the Buffalo region. We've got wonderful universities around here, and there's a lot of opportunity for people to commercialize products that have been developed in their lab. So, and that's something you can get involved in from any point. You don't have to be the person who invents the product, because a lot of people who invent these are professors who have a full professorial load. And so they're often looking to partner with people who can help bring their technology into the marketplace. And there's a lot of opportunity to get involved in tech transfer, as we call them, technology transfer, tech transfer startups. And that's what we've been doing. We hire an awful lot of students at the undergraduate level. We let them intern with our company because it's good for someone who's interested in joining our company. They can come and they intern in our company, and they get a good exposure to what a startup is. They get to meet other startups, meet with other people who are working in other startups. So they get some experience, we get experience with them. We've taken on a lot of those full time. And also, even if they've got no interest in actually staying with our company, it just gives them an opportunity working in a startup in general to see what the life is like. And so if you ever get an opportunity just to intern at a startup at any level, just filling the paper tray, it'll give you a great insight into what goes on. So I'd encourage you and we get a lot of cold calls. People just reach out, and if there's room, we take them on.
Yeah, Glenna, I appreciate that point a lot. I often am telling students, startups are great places to come and learn, right? You might come in on the accounting team or the finance team or the operations or marketing team, but you're really going to get a ton of exposure beyond just that, lane of business. So I would agree very much. And I like your point about, folks reaching out to you, cold calling, because maybe they have a particular interest in what you're working on, or they like you, Glenna, whatever the situation is. And I think that's important to note, and that startups are not always as formal in the hiring process as a larger corporation would be. So I think it's important that, students know if there's a company they want to get, a founder that they want to get to know, or a company that they might want to work for, reaching out is a great venue to try to get your foot in the door, and ideally, find a role within the company too. There's a lot less structure, I guess, is what I'm trying to say, around the hiring process in startups.
Well, a startup has generally got fewer people in it. And so there's a lot more interaction, day-to-day interaction across the whole breadth of the company. So you'll get exposed, even if it's not quite what you want, you will get exposed to what goes on in all the other segments. We have an engineering division, we have a life sciences division, we have a computing division, but everybody's working together. Everybody comes together for the big meetings. You definitely get to see all sides of the project. One note about reaching out to people. We do get a lot of emails, notes from people asking for opportunities. If there's some reason that you'd like to work for a startup, I really suggest that you identify what that reason is. Put down some concrete reason why you're interested in that particular company. You can do that for 100 different companies. That's okay. But if I get an email going, "Dear startup, I am interested in you and your product because I think it's a good opportunity for us to interact," that gets deleted. It's not going to get any reaction for me. But if you say, "I really like your product, this is my background, this is where I think that we could work together, this is what I'm looking for, an internship, a volunteer position, whatever it is that you're looking for," or if you've got your credentials and you're going, I'm looking to enter the field, I'm looking for a starting position in a company. But make it clear. Don't just go, "I like you and your company," delete.
Noted, and I agree. Personalizing and doing research on the front end, I think, is expected when you're reaching out to a founder and essentially asking for a role. So I could agree. Glenna, let's go back to high school for you. So tell us, if you can rewind, where were you? What type of school did you go to? What did you study?
So I'm not from Buffalo. That much you might have guessed already. And I went to a school in London, in England, and it was a selective school. So you had to take entrance exams to get in. And so we had a lot of opportunity, but you had to work very hard too. And it was a good basic education, and it positioned us really well. You had to fight for things that you wanted. We were very much encouraged. We had a most incredible school principal who had a rather strange view of the world. But you had to work very hard, and you had to play by the rules, but also to think outside the box, which is a very difficult thing to do. But it's actually the startup mindset. If you're so out there that you're just a goofball, nobody's going to be interested. You have to get stuff done. If you're going to have a startup, you've got to have a product or a service that you have to turn around, and you have to complete that service. You have to hit your milestones with whatever agreement you do. You have to have a product that you're going to ship to people, or you're going to have a service that works. So you've got to have that incredibly strong basis. On the top, the branding, everything else, you can do what you want. And that's where you get the flexibility. You've got to have the flexibility in thinking, how do you do this? But you have to play within the rules. You're a company. It doesn't matter whether you're one person or a million people. You've still got to do all your IRS paperwork. You've got to do Startup New York paperwork, which I hope goes on for a long time. If you apply to something like 43North, there's rules and regulations. You have to hit every single mark that they request. If you don't meet their criteria, you won't be considered, and you'll lose out on something as great an opportunity as 43North. So it's that weird mix of working really hard and drawing within the lines, yet on the other side, having that creativity to think outside the lines, to come up with new situations. And like I say, our principal, you could more or less do as you like, so long as you hit all the solid, rigid targets, which is quite unusual.
Yeah, I'll say. Glenna, was this an all-girls school or were you co-ed?
This was mainly girls, yes.
Got it. And tell us, were there particular classes that you enjoyed more than others back then? Like was entrepreneurship in your head, or the opportunity to be a founder something you were thinking about back then, or not so much?
Funny enough, yes, but I had no idea what it was going to be. And I am obviously in the tech space, so I did a ton of maths and physics and chemistry and all those kind of subjects.
Awesome. Tell us about when you weren't studying and weren't in the classroom. Were there clubs or activities or jobs that you had outside of school?
I worked in Woolworths, FW Woolworths, my first job. And so I did a lot of other jobs as well. Anything that gives you insight. I worked in the hospital. I worked in various places. I would take any opportunity. Every job is a good idea when you're being exposed in the workplace. There weren't a lot of great startups or anything there. There were companies that you tended to work for, and one of the worst jobs I had, I worked in Harrods, the department store, world famous department store, people may know, and I was in the women's lingerie department. And I was there, and I came up with this system of sorting out all the underwear. You go into a department store, everything gets mushed around. And they needed somebody to regroup everything by size and everything else. So that's what I did. I set out this whole system in the back stock room on the floor. And I had all this system doing, and I was going through it fantastically well. And the person came in, and everything was off the floor because it's in these little cartons that you had to put these things in. And the lady said, you can't work sitting down. You must stand up and work. I said, but I've got this thing. Oh, no, you can't do that. And I'm like, well, it's working. So the next day they reassessed their requirements for the season, and I was no longer required, which was wonderful because I got a job in basically the next day in a hospital in a spinal injuries unit. It was much closer to my house. It was a much more fulfilling summer that I had than I ever could have had if I stayed working at a department store. And so when you're going to get fired. I think that's the only job I've ever been fired from. Yes. Doesn't matter. It was a wonderful thing, absolutely wonderful thing. If it's not the right fit, and it was probably I should have left, but I'd only been there a week. If it's not the right fit, you shouldn't run away from things. But if it's not the right fit, there may be something better that you can go and find to do. So that was a great opportunity that I had. I was working in the spinal injuries unit and seeing medicine in practice and helping out there. When it came to clubs, I think it would be quicker to list the clubs I was not a member of. I was everything. I was a joiner. I was doing stuff, and yeah, I was a joiner.
I love it. So generally, you like school, you like studying. Sounds like you were working hard outside of the classroom as well.
Oh, I had big run-ins at school, and it was not all rosy, but those big battles over at school are good because they prepare you to speak your mind outside, to come up with alternative solutions, to problem solve, to no, it was challenging in a lot of ways, but it's rather corny that today's challenge is tomorrow's experience that you build on. But yes, it's very important to live high school to the fullest, so that you don't just come out with a grade on a piece of paper, because that's not going to take you anywhere. You've got to get that full rounded personality. If you're not getting into conflict at school, there's some problem. You're not applying yourself fully rounded. So you should, with your peers and your teachers but you should be able to negotiate your way out of situations and see your way forward. I'm not suggesting make trouble for trouble's sake. What I'm suggesting is that you will undoubtedly come across situations where there's different points of view, and you need to bring people together and find good solutions.
I love that. So Glenna, think about college for you. Was it always expected that you would go to college? Was that always part of your plan? And if so, was it junior, senior year that you were thinking about it? Or, how did you approach the whole college situation?
So I decided I was on a car journey, and I can tell you exactly where we were turning from one road into another was the moment I decided I was going to college. And I've no idea why. I don't remember the moment before. I don't remember the moment after. It was just, I'm going to college. And I don't know why that moment stuck with me, but I can't remember how old I was. But that was the moment of realization. I remember when I was a very small child and I had chicken pox. So I was home from school and I was sitting under a table. That's how small I was. I was sitting under a table in our sitting room, and my mother was there, and we were watching something on TV, and it was a bunch of students debating something at a meeting somewhere. And so I must have been just 6 or 7 at that time. And I thought that looked like the coolest thing on earth. It was all these students, a lot of them sitting on the floor and listening to this person. And so that was my first awareness. And then there was that moment. But like I say, I went to a very selective school. It was anticipated that you would go to college. There were, I don't know that there was anyone who didn't go to college in my year. I can't think of them.
And what was your plan? Did you know you would stay? Did you want, just kind of talk through what you were thinking in terms of the colleges that you applied to as you were, getting farther into your high school journey?
So I was a high schooler, and the reason I chose my college, so the university I went to, it's got several different little colleges, and you have to pick which college within the university structure that you want to go to. The reason I chose my college was the squash courts were closest. Squash, the game that we play in the UK, a bit like racquetball, were closest to the living accommodation. So yes, I had full high school consideration, and that's the kind of consideration you make as a high schooler, and that's okay because it turned out fine. The considerations in the UK are of course very different, because it's not like if you're in Buffalo and you're choosing whether to go to California, because Britain's not that big, and the whole system is that they are all state-run colleges. There is one private college. There might be another private college now. So they're all on the same scale. The fees are all the same. There's nothing it's a lot of other considerations that go into it. So it was, for me, it was really looking at the courses that they ran. You also have to declare a major before you go in. So for me, it was going through, reading what the courses were like. Like I say, distance didn't really matter because it was only a 2-hour journey versus a 4-hour journey, and then you're off the edge of the island, so that's not a consideration. So yeah, it's a little bit different in the UK though.
Yeah. And tell us, so, a lot of the students watching will be on their way to college at some point very soon. Talk through your transition to college life, right? Not knowing everyone that you surround yourself with, not knowing all the squash players, or maybe having to eat alone. Talk through that transition and how it went for you, Glenna.
Well, I didn't know anybody in my college. Nobody went to the same college that I did. There were a couple of other girls within the university structure, but it's really split up into colleges. But everybody's in the same boat. Everybody's in the same boat. So you just go in and you go, "Hi, how are you?" Like I mentioned, in high school I was a joiner. It just transitioned quite nicely into joining in college, because you join things, you have to speak to people to join things. You get there, you get assigned to people, and suddenly you've got a whole new friend set. It's you just it's like anything. Whenever you sign up for something new or go somewhere new, you're going to transition to a new group of friends. I don't particularly remember that as challenging, because that was prepared for. That was a known unknown. You knew you were going to show up. You wouldn't know anybody, so but they would be there. They're showing up at college, so they have a similar kind of background, as in they want to get a college degree. So you've got that much in common, that everybody's got the same background, desire to get a college degree. Otherwise, they wouldn't be there. And so there's one piece you've got that's all the same. And then you go from there, and you find the other stuff that you've got in common. And I don't know. You remember back to kindergarten? You didn't know anybody in kindergarten. It's all the same.
Right. Glenna, what were you studying?
Physics.
Got it. And talk through entrepreneurship at this level. So were you thinking even in college yet that you would found a company, or, what was your vision for your career while you were studying in college?
We didn't talk about it as entrepreneurship, but I was involved in two what we would now call startups. One that was my own, and one that was my professor's. So we never actually called it a startup, but the thought was the same. I did physics, but I did a lot of programming too. And so I had a computer company where I would consult with people on computers, a lot more of, because people were not, offices were just getting equipped with computers. So I would go in, I would set all the computers up for the people, I would troubleshoot, I would be on call for any computer issues. So I'd be the IT, we were really an IT specialist company, just helping people out. My professor had set up a company where we were developing computer programs for some to model the behavior of the heart, and so I worked with him on that company, and we sold that software all around the world. It wasn't billed as a startup or a spin-off. It was just something, again, he'd made this as part of his work. He'd made these mathematical models and people wanted them, and so we packaged them up and built the structure around them. And I didn't realize at the time, as you never do, how important those experiences would be later on when I came to set up my own company. But they were very, very important, having had a lot of customer contact, going through the whole business procedure. But that I didn't go into that with the plan of gaining skills. It was just an opportunity that I wanted to get involved with it at the time.
Yeah, I feel like that's a recurring theme for you, Glenna, in that it's been about the experiences, right? The places that you've taken roles where you didn't know the impact it would have down the line in terms of.
So I read something about Steve Jobs. It was that commencement speech he gave, and he said that he went to a calligraphy class, and he had no idea why he was going to a calligraphy class, but he ended up there. And it actually turned out to be very important, because when it came to the Apple Mac, the calligraphy and the fonts, because he had an understanding of that, he put an emphasis on that. And that's one of the things about the Mac, has always had these nice fonts. And that was just because he went to a calligraphy class for an unknown reason. And so I was like, oh, I identify with that, what he was doing there, that you try these things out, not necessarily everything with a step going forward, but it's just like, this seems like an opportunity. Let's have a look.
Wow, I love that. And I think for students too, sometimes you just never know what you're going to experience. And I think it's always worthwhile to jump into things that maybe you don't even know much about, or don't know if you're going to, spend your whole career in certain fields, but to gain as much experience in addition to the education that they're receiving within the classroom is
absolutely. So on the other end of things, I read this letter. I can't remember where it was from, but it was from some lady who was saying that she felt completely cheated by the education system, because she had her children study so hard, and they had got into an Ivy League school or something, and they had completed their Ivy League degree. And so now she expected them to have these amazing jobs, and they didn't have amazing jobs. And I just felt so sorry for this lady, because, a piece of paper from an Ivy League degree doesn't get you a job. Nice grades on paper don't get you everything you want. It's important to get good grades, but you want to have that full, complete person, and you don't want to sacrifice your GPA. You've got to do well in school, and you've got to do well in college. But college isn't all about your GPA. It's about what you're learning in the classroom and outside of the classroom, and those connections that you're making, and these people bringing these really new and different ideas to you. And your head should explode once in a while at college, going, oh my gosh, I never considered that before. Because you should be coming across people with a background that's completely different to yours, that you've never encountered that point of view before. And they may be very wrong, and that's okay. But you need to find these people and go, oh, okay, this is so different than I've been before. So that when you get out of college, you're not waving your GPA, and you're not waving your college transcript going, I'm the most perfect person, give me that job. It's who you've become, and you've got that skill set, which is, part of it is getting good grades and understanding the material, but part of it is understanding how the world works. And if you want to start up your own business, and if you have discovered that you have that entrepreneurial streak in you, that you are confident of that, and you know how to make that happen. Now, there's a lot of opportunities for entrepreneurial activities that we didn't call it that, but I see that we had that. And I would wholeheartedly that you suggest that you take advantage of all of those opportunities afforded to you. We had something called Young Enterprise. I don't know if that's still going on. I think that was an international thing where you had to go through all the steps of making a company and a product. You didn't have to have the pressure of actually coming up with a solution. You could make it anything you wanted. The solution was theoretical, but you had to go through the steps of marketing it, of branding it, of selling it. And then we had to pitch our product. And again, it wasn't the technology that was important. It was understanding all those other steps, connecting with your customer market, identifying who your market would be if you had this imaginary product. So things like that. There's a lot of stuff you can do, even if you don't particularly have a product or a technology or a whatever or service that you're offering. There's an awful lot of good in these entrepreneurship programs that you can apply. And even if you don't become an entrepreneur, I think it's pretty useful knowing how to brand and market and sell. Because you'll be branding yourself, marketing yourself for a job, whatever you do.
Yes, exactly. I couldn't agree more. Glenna, I'm just conscious of the time, and I think it would be of interest of the students to know, how you ended up in Buffalo. So connect us, even if it's quickly, from college in the UK, and then all of a sudden we have you now in Buffalo.
So it's pretty straightforward.
Okay.
I mentioned this before. The universities around here are great. You've got a real density of universities here. My work, I'm a physicist. I do biophysics, structure function of ion channels. I really wanted to do ion channel biophysics, and that wasn't the approach that was happening in the UK. I much preferred the approach they were taking in the US. And there were about 6 departments of biophysics in the US, and one of them was at the University at Buffalo. And so I came here, and about a year after I came here, they merged the Department of Biophysics, the Department of Physiology. So that was another pure biophysics department gone, but it doesn't matter. The people were still here, and they have a real strength in ion channel biophysics, which is my special area.
Got it. So you came over to study here or be a professor at UB? Talk us through, and then the stickiness, like what's kept you here?
I don't move very frequently. I went to the same place, same university for undergrad, master's, PhD. I just didn't move. And then I came here and I just didn't move. So I'm not a very movable person. So all my education was finished when I came here. I came here for a job. And there's a lot to like about Western New York. There's a lot of opportunity here. There's you can do almost anything you want. And of course you can do anything you want in New York City, but New York City is so busy and crowded. You can stand on the street corner and yell for a million years that you've found time travel, and everybody will just go, oh, crazy, crazy. Actually, they won't even say that, because there's a person standing on every street corner saying they've invented time travel. But here in Western New York, there's sufficient resources so that you can get things done. And if you do have good ideas, there's enough people around to help bring those ideas to fruition. And there's not somebody saying that they invented time travel on every street corner. So that it's a good place to actually make inroads if you want to achieve something. I also like the climate and I like the seasons, and it's a good place to live.
That's wonderful to hear. Glenna, one last topic I'm sure we haven't touched on, but I'm sure you have experience with is the idea of mentorship, right? Yeah. And finding folks that can help round out your team, of folks that want to help you. So talk about, times when you maybe relied on mentors or the importance of them to building your company. how you found mentors, just general, the importance of mentorship and its impact on you.
So mentors are very, very important, because why would you want to go and make all the silly mistakes that someone could just help you through? If you're the kind of person who loves making mistakes, go ahead. But you're going to make enough mistakes that it's really useful to have someone who's just a step or two ahead of you, or maybe 10 steps ahead of you. And like I say, with the entrepreneurial ecosystem here in Buffalo, it's really nice because it's not so overwhelmingly huge that you don't know. I think I could probably reach out to almost anyone in the Buffalo ecosystem and ask for help, and they'd turn around. And we did that at the beginning. We had the company set up, but for the first year, I think we just visited people and talked and talked. And most important, we listened and listened and listened. And I remember somebody about a little while in, we still listen as much as we can, because there's an incredible number of people out there who have important things to say. And we've been on the journey maybe 18 months or so, and made an appointment to speak with someone that we've been trying to speak to for a while. And we started with the very, very fundamental questions. And how do you feel about this? And what's your experience of that? And not because we didn't have 101 answers to that question at all, but we wanted to get this person's input. And they said, oh, I would have thought you were further along by now. I'm like, well, we kind of went back that we have some ideas, and that we just want further enlightenment. But it's not that we weren't far along. We were far along. We'd sold product at this point. But I think that you can't dismiss other people's experience. All these different people, they've got something different that they bring to the table. And if they're offering tips for how they got through, strategy for how they got through, I would listen to anybody. Even now, we've been in business, we've got lots of sales, we're doing okay. I would listen to anyone who came to speak to us, because mentors have been hugely important. And the kind of mentor you start with isn't necessarily going to be able to see you the whole way through. At the very, very beginning, we needed just structural mentors to make sure that we were doing all the paperwork correctly, all the regulations correctly, because if you're not doing the regulations correctly, you're getting into a huge headache. Now we farm out most of that stuff to lawyers and accountants and everything else, but we know what we needed to do. And we're part of the university, and so the university gave us great mentorship too, to help us start the company, what we could and couldn't do. And of course, when we were one of the 43North winners, we got an incredible team assigned to us who further helped us think about how the company should go. And that was incredibly useful, because at that point, we'd been mentored very well. We had some super mentors, but they were all coming within the University at Buffalo space, and they come from that kind of, they had different views, but the wonderful thing about 43North was it's corporate. It's absolutely corporate, and it's got partnerships with all the universities, but everybody's got a very, very different background. And you've got to get all these mentors from different places, because they've all got different experiences. And so mentorship is so incredibly important in helping you go forward. Now, sometimes it's the mentor telling you things, but the most effective mentors that we have are the ones who just sit there and ask questions. And they make you verbalize various things that you may not wish to verbalize. And you have to find the words, and you have to say why you're doing it. And those are the most challenging mentors, and so the most helpful mentors. Because if you're avoiding certain things, they can see it and they make you talk about them. And sometimes as you're explaining it to other people, that's when you get that real dawning of, oh, I don't want to have anything, or you know what, this is the way you want to do it. You just want to. And so it's that ability. A good mentor doesn't need to know your space entirely, but if they can ask the good questions and get you kind of self-mentoring, but they are that mentoring process is getting that operation working within you so that you're making the decisions that are right for you. But they've got an incredibly important role in making you ask those questions, making you find that way forward. So get any mentoring that you can, even if it's not a good fit. Everybody's got something good to bring to the table.
I love that. And I agree. Even as students, right? The folks that are surrounding them within the classroom with all these different backgrounds and home lives and parents' occupations, right? The conversations they're having at home are very different from maybe someone you're just sitting next to. So I would agree that that stuff can start even in the high school.
Absolutely.
Glenna, just as we conclude, any final parting words for our bright young students that are looking to the future, a year or two left in high school and then off to college, and then ideally, you know, we'll see this generation come back to Buffalo and work for someone like you or another 43North company. So what final words of advice do you have?
Work hard. You've got to have a basic skill set, whatever you do. And I would say take a risk. If you're not sure, have a go. If it doesn't work out, then leave it. Don't pursue things that aren't going to work. But don't be afraid to take risks. I think that sometimes people can be a little hesitant about whether they should go for this or shouldn't go for this. And that's certainly been a growth for me. We even thinking about our company, some of the partnerships we've made, I've been a little hesitant about. I'm not sure this has got the potential to go wrong, and then I end up to a place of, and what's going to go wrong? This is what would happen if it goes wrong. I can live with this. Let's take that chance. So I'm not talking about wild, crazy risks, but take a risk. Go to a group that you've never met before. Join in with them. You don't know who's going to be in that group that might change your life somehow. But not wild, crazy risks. Risks that have got some potential.
I love that. Thank you, Glenna, so much for your time today. We really appreciate it.
You're very welcome.